Are you a coach or consultant looking to build new revenue streams to fund your lifestyle and give back? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests and solo shows sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you enjoy it, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. It means the world to me when you do. Our guest today is someone who worked for the largest hedge fund in the world. Then they worked for Credit Suisse, which is one of the biggest banks in the world, and then went into entertainment industry in LA. And you know that that's where a lot of stuff happens. He has a brother who has an idea a minute. And my guest knew how he could channel his best ones into valuable businesses. He and his brother now run 3 successful businesses together. So why listen? How to define your superpower to bring you success, what traits make successful leaders in these uncertain times, and how to use LinkedIn the right way. Over to Adam Mendler from the Veloz Group and 30-Minute Mentors. Welcome, Adam Mendler from the Veloz Group to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Brilliant to have you on, Adam.
Pleasure to be here. Excited to be here with you and with your audience. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Well, doing some research on you, you've got such a wonderful background and, can't wait to dig into that more. But why don't we start with something that your family or friends know about you that we may not?
Well, I try to be as open a book as I can with everyone. So I'm not sure how much listeners in Australia know about baseball, but I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm a huge Angels fan. Are you a baseball fan at all, or is that a sport that you haven't gotten that into?
Well, I'm not per se, but I was very lucky that my best friend last year gave me a kidney transplant, and he is a fanatic baseball follower. And we were due to go to a game in LA in March of this year, but due to COVID, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, he watches. Yeah, I'm sure he would be much better at answering this question than what I am.
Well, I can tell you that anyone who knows me knows how much I love baseball, knows how much I love the Angels, and maybe some listeners know that, but I don't know how much listeners down under would know that.
Well, look, our audience is, we've got a lot of people in the US that listen, so I'm sure that they will. But yeah, look, we know about it. It's a bit like, I think we know more about baseball than you know about cricket, if that makes sense.
I know nothing about cricket, so the bar is not very low.
Yeah, well, that's...
the bar is not very high, excuse me.
So our best cricketers, there was a former captain called Alan Border who was like he wasn't a Babe Ruth, but he was pretty well known, and they used to all play baseball in the off season. So in the good old days, there was an off season where now they play cricket, 12 months of the year. But so I think baseball became popular then. So at school, we used to play baseball.
Interesting.
So that's great. And like I said, you've had an amazing background. I know you sort of, got three businesses that you run from what I've done on my research, but I'd love to know, just a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So my background is as an entrepreneur. I started these different businesses while I was in my late 20s. Prior to becoming an entrepreneur, I worked for some really large companies. My first job out of college was working for what was then the largest hedge fund in the world, a company called D.E. Shaw. So after college, I moved to New York and worked on Wall Street for a couple of years. And after that, moved back to LA, which is where I'm from, to get my MBA at UCLA. While I was getting my MBA, I worked in the entertainment industry and worked for William Morris Endeavor, really big talent agency. I worked for a big studio, Universal Pictures. And then when I graduated, I went back into finance working for Credit Suisse, big international bank. So I had all this corporate experience under my belt, and by the time I was in my late 20s, felt like I was ready to do something a little bit different. I was ready to try the entrepreneurial route. Felt like if there was ever a moment in my life to try it, it was then. And my brother and I started the Veloz group. We named it after the street we grew up on, Veloz Avenue in Tarzana, California. Tarzana is a suburb of LA.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. We've pushed on lots and lots of different ideas over the years. A lot of them have been unsuccessful. A lot of them have gone nowhere. But 3 of the ideas have turned into companies that have had some success. We have an office furniture company called Beverly Hills Chairs. We're the leading sellers in the U.S. of refurbished brand name office chairs. So we sell all over the world as well, but specifically within the U.S., we're the number 1 sellers of refurbished Herman Miller Aeron chairs, as well as other brand name office chairs, and chairs that will sell for $1,000 or more brand new will sell for 50% off that, or even higher discount. That's one of our companies. We have another company called Custom Tobacco. You go to Custom Tobacco, you can create your own fully customized private label cigars in real time. So everything's customized, the shape, size, blend, wrapper, filler, flavor, and you can create your own fully customized cigar bands. So really popular for gifts and for events. You think about how hard it is to find the perfect gift for the man in your life. That could be your buddy, that could be your husband, that could be your boyfriend, your boss, your dad, your client, you name it. We have a software development company, Veloz Solutions, where we work with early stage to middle market companies on custom software development. We've worked with lots of really interesting organizations. We currently have a couple of clients in the life insurance space, which has become an interesting niche for us. I do a lot of writing and speaking on leadership, on entrepreneurship, on management. And my podcast, 30-Minute Mentors, is the newest thing that I've been pushing on. Every week I go one-on-one with one of the most successful people in the country for 30 minutes on how they got to the top, and more importantly, on how listeners can get to the top as well. So 30-Minute Mentors is the latest thing I've been doing and something that I'm really passionate about. And anyone interested in podcasts, I try to make it really accessible, and it's a ton of fun for me, and hopefully just as much fun for anyone who tunes in.
Great. Well, that's a brilliant background, and we're going to go through a little bit more of that in the build section. But I'm interested with your brother, right? So that's it. You know, I don't interview many people that have a successful working relationship with a sibling. So tell me, you know, what role do you play, and what role does your brother play? And firstly, what's your brother's name?
My brother's name is Jordan.
Jordan.
And yeah, my brother and I are very different, which is, I think, why it's been able to work. My brother has an idea a minute. He's a great idea generator. A lot of the ideas are not necessarily good ones, but some of them are. And you just kind of have to try things. You have to vet things, but you also have to try things in business. And not only trying new businesses, but trying different ideas within your business. And his skill set really revolves around areas of creativity and also around technology. My brother is just a genius when it comes to tech. My brother, I mentioned Veloz Solutions. My brother runs the technical side of Veloz Solutions. He has a very deep background as a CTO, has run technology for a number of clients we've had, but prior to the Veloz group, was doing lots of really interesting things in the tech space. And my background is not in either one of those two things. I am not the guy who's going to come up with $1 billion idea. And I'm not the guy who's going to write code or understand lines of code. And a key message that I have to audiences that I speak to is, the end of the day, most of us are bad at most things in life. It's important to recognize what it is you're bad at, but understand what you're good at. And some of the things that I do well are things that my brother doesn't do well. So we're able to complement each other. And in the things that neither of us do well, we're able to get them done by bringing in other people within our organization who excel in those areas.
Okay, well, look, I think that's a brilliant segue into the build section. And, you talked about your brother's strengths, which is fantastic. What about yours? You talked about leadership speaking, but what do you know about, leadership and entrepreneurship? What do you know about leadership that many may miss?
Paul, we can spend the entire episode just talking about leadership. It's an area that I'm really passionate about. And I think that anyone interested in becoming a better leader, step number one, you need to really understand who you are. I mentioned in response to your previous question, taking the time to fully understand what it is you're bad at, what it is you're good at, what it is you're great at. I strongly believe that there's one thing about each and every one of us that makes us special. We have that one thing that makes us unique, that makes us different, that makes us special. It's our superpower. And the more quickly you can figure out what it is about you that makes you special, the more successful you'll be in business, the more successful you'll be in life, the more successful you'll be as a leader. So in order to be a successful leader of any organization, you need to first and foremost be able to successfully lead your own life. You need to first and foremost be able to understand who you are. No one's going to follow you. No one's going to take orders from you. No one's going to listen to you if you're not a person worth listening to. And in order to get to that stage, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. You have to truly be able to lead by having a strong sense of right and wrong and a strong sense of security and stability and comfort in who you are. That's step one. Understand.
And Adam, can you do that by yourself, or is it best to do that with the guidance of someone else?
I think that it requires the guidance not only of someone else, but of as many people as you can bring along the journey with you as possible. So I implore audiences that I speak to bring in as many voices as you can to help you figure out what it is about you that makes you special. Ask your parents, ask your friends, ask your neighbors, ask your colleagues, ask your teachers, ask whoever it is that you know that knows you, that can give you a perspective, an honest, objective perspective on you. Ask them, what is it about me that makes me special? What is it about me that makes me different? What is my defining characteristic? And what I think you'll find is a coalescence around something. And that something might be different for you than it is for me. It probably will be. But figure that out, because it's important to incorporate as many perspectives as you can. None of us has all the answers. None of us has a monopoly on knowledge. And Paul, it's an important point, not only in the first step of your leadership journey, but in every step of your leadership journey. No matter where you are in this process, it's extremely important to continually learn as much as you can, to continually bring in as much help as you can. That help can be in the form of a mentor. That help can be in the form of a group of mentors. I'm a believer in a concept that I call mini mentors, which is in contrast to a traditional mentor. Mini mentors are people who you might meet with once or once a year or once every now and then, instead of a mentor who's deeply invested in your life. My show, 30-Minute Mentors, is really an attempt to try to give listeners access to the best network of mentors possible in 30-minute increments. And whether you're someone who enjoys listening to podcasts or enjoys picking up books or enjoys picking up the phone and talking to people, figure out how you can incorporate as many voices as possible, assuming they're good voices, assuming they're voices that can add value to you and to your life, and really take a step back and listen.
Yeah, and I think, that's the brilliant part of podcasting is that, I remember moving house, just how tedious it was to move all my books in the day. Now, thanks to the cloud, I can just move my knowledge base wherever I go very simply. So I think that's really powerful. And just in, what is your superpower? You talked about a great way of discovering it, but how do you articulate your superpower?
It's a good question, Paul. And something that I've discovered over the years is that I've been able to connect with all different kinds of people in a deeply authentic way because of my genuine and deep love of people. And it's manifested itself in different forms. When I was a kid, I was friends with people of all ages. I was friends with people of all backgrounds. And to this day, it's really the same way. It's been able to help me with the different businesses that I've built. It's been very helpful for me in being able to build 30-minute mentors. And in my personal life, it's been helpful. So it's something that I've discovered at a later age. When I was younger, I didn't really understand that about me. I didn't understand that this was something that was unique and that was special. It was just something that came easy to me. When I was a kid, I was a guy who was just friends with everyone. It didn't matter how old you are. It didn't matter what you were interested in. It didn't really matter what. And just because I truly love people and getting to know people. And Paul, these podcasts are fun for me because I love talking about leadership. I don't necessarily enjoy talking about myself. I would much rather talk about you and talk about who you are and understand as much about you as I can, which is why I love my podcast, because it's not about me, it's about you. And so much of relationship building is about that. It's about you really genuinely trying to get to know the person sitting across the table from you.
Yeah, look, I think that's a brilliant gift. And it's certainly, if I had to articulate one of my superpowers, or my superpower to be a similar thing. And, I was taught at a very young age, I had a strange relationship, which I didn't think was at the time, where my grandfather and his twin brother lived with my grandfather's wife. And, I just thought that was a normal thing, right? But he was always ostracized because, no one wants to marry two people. They want to marry one. And I just spent all of my days talking to him as a kid, and he had an incredible mind, and he just taught me the power of that conversation. But for a lot of people at the moment, they get bombarded on LinkedIn as a prime example with just people not connecting very well. So, and at the moment, we're in a COVID time where, the in-meeting has turned to virtual. What are some tips on how to best connect with people and understand their stories in this environment?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, because I am, it's a pet peeve of mine, the LinkedIn cold emailing. And I'm not against using LinkedIn for relationship building. On the contrary, I'm all for using LinkedIn for relationship building. But just the bombardment of cold messages without any sense of who you're reaching out to, and the lack of personalization, and it's almost like a lack of space, the continual follow-up without any kind of regard for the fact that the person across from you has no interest. And it's sort of like that, come on, give it a rest, guys, please, enough. And I love LinkedIn. I'm a very active user of LinkedIn, but that part of it is really, really frustrating to me. And it's frustrating to everyone on LinkedIn. So I bring this up because if you're using LinkedIn or if you're doing any kind of cold outreach, step number one is personalize your communication as best as possible. If someone reaches out to me and the communication is not at all personalized, my first reaction is going to be to delete or to block them. If someone reaches out to me in a highly personalized way, I'm going to read it. And if there's something there, I'll probably respond to it. So that's not rocket science, Paul, but it's something that I wish more people would incorporate into their sales strategies, into their marketing strategies, and just into their communication in general. Take the time to personalize your communication with other people, regardless of the medium that you're communicating with them on.
I totally agree. And the other thing is, you got video now. You got native video in LinkedIn. You can use great platforms, which we use a platform called Dubb, D-U-B-B. But there's so many ways that you can personalize it now. So that's one step. What's something else? Something else that you build relationships really well on LinkedIn by doing?
That's truly my best tip. My best tip. Well, tip number one is personalize. Tip number two is add real value to people. Don't try to immediately sell people. My God, that's as big a turnoff as there is. Instead of trying to immediately sell someone on something, that, by the way, that's another way for me to delete your message. And not just me, but for anyone. It's sort of like, I don't know who you are. Why are you selling me immediately? Offer value. Instead of trying to extract value, offer some value. And I don't mean fake value. I have lots of people, and I'm sure you do, Paul, and I'm sure all of your listeners do, who will send these generic emails, they're automated emails, saying, hey, here's a link to this free book that I wrote, or here's a link. And they're not offering any value. What they're doing is they're promoting themselves. And that's fine. I get it. I get that I'm promoting my podcast. I understand. None of us are above this. But that's not adding value. You're not adding value to me by offering me a free copy of your book. What you're doing is you're promoting yourself. So if you want to build a genuine relationship with someone, step number one, personalize your communication. And step number two, figure out a way to offer real value to that person, not to try to extract value from them.
Yeah, and I think that's where a podcast is a fantastic way of adding value. So, I often generally, like you, want to hear people's great stories, and LinkedIn is an excellent way of finding new people to tell their stories, so that you're actually adding value to them. And around, I've listened to your podcast. You've got some amazing people on. How do you get access to such amazing people to get on your podcast?
Great question, and it's really along the lines of everything we've spoken about. I think it's important. First and foremost, this is the best advice I can give. And it's advice that I give to people when I speak on the topic, whether it's speaking to audiences or speaking one-on-one, on the topic of hiring and on the topic of recruiting, which is, I think it's really important to try to create something that people want to be a part of. So when I was building out the Veloz group, one of the things that I was really focused on was trying to really create a culture and a brand and an experience that people would want to be a part of. The Veloz group was a company that no one had ever heard of because it didn't exist before. That's why no one heard of it. There was nothing to have heard of. But right away, we were able to attract the best talent in the country without any funding and without any marketing budget. And a big reason why was this philosophy that if you build it, they will come. Now, it doesn't work in e-commerce. It doesn't work when you have an office furniture company. If you build it, they won't come unless you drive really hard marketing. You have to do, paid search and lots of other things. But when you're building a business, when you have a podcast, if you can create something that people will want to be a part of, you will attract really, really good people to be a part of it. I've been able to do that with the Veloz group, and I've been able to do that with 30-minute mentors. I think that people are attracted to what we're doing. They're attracted to the idea that you can come on to 30-minute mentors, spend 30 minutes going one-on-one, talking about how you got to the top and how anyone listening to this podcast can get to the top as well, sharing practical, tangible advice on how to become more successful personally, how to become more successful professionally, and how to become a better leader. And when you're someone who is extremely successful, there are a number of different ways that you can make a difference. People can make a difference by giving money to charity. People can make a difference by donating their time through mentorship. This is 30 minutes. And for 30 minutes, you can come on and to a national audience, make a real difference in people's lives. And I think that really appeals to people. And my guests are people who love mentoring. They love mentorship. They love the idea that they could really make a meaningful difference in the lives of others. And that's what makes 30-minute mentors what it is.
And, you've interviewed lots of people, very successful, from sport, from corporate, from entertainment. This question, is a little generic, but, when you link back to what you know about leadership and the people you've interviewed, just, give us some of your wise words around, how to be successful. Like you've seen people that are hugely successful, and like you said, you met a lot of people that aren't. What do you see as some of the key differences?
Yeah, really good question, Paul. So first and foremost, I think that the first thing that when I'm asked this question, the first thing that I try to tell people is, given that I've interviewed hundreds of leaders across disciplines, military leaders, leaders of Fortune 500 companies, leaders of tech startups that have turned into billion-dollar household name companies, leaders of sports teams, leaders in every discipline, the core principles of effective leadership are universal. And it doesn't matter what organization you're leading. It doesn't matter what field you're in. The same principles apply. What are those principles? What does it take to get to the top? What do you need to do to be successful? Here are a few. Number one, and this is something that we touched on a little bit earlier, but number one is every single person who I've had on my show has told me, either on the air or off the air in some form, just how important the concept of lifelong learning is to them. I can't tell you the number of guests that I've interviewed who have told me how much value they've gotten by listening to other podcast interviews that I've done. The first few times I've heard that, I was shocked, because I thought, these are literally the most successful people in the country. Why would they tell me, other than to be kind and flattering, why would they tell me that they're listening to these other podcast interviews and really learning a lot from them? These guys are literally the most successful people, and women. I use the word guys figuratively as a matter of speech, but why are they telling me that they're learning so much from my podcast when they're already so successful? And what I've come to learn is that's exactly the point. The reason why they're so successful is because of this commitment to learn, this commitment to grow, no matter how successful you are. No matter where you are in your journey, you never know enough. You should never be satisfied with your level of knowledge. You should never be satisfied with where you are insofar as how much you know. And unfortunately, we have leaders who have a tendency to get set in their ways, and that can become a major problem. And having flexibility of mind, being able to continually adapt, being able to pivot, being able to change with the winds of change. These are things that no matter where you are, whether you're a leader of a business or whether you're someone graduating from college and trying to figure out how to get a job in the midst of the worst crisis we faced in our lifetimes, these are principles that you need to be successful in your life. So having a commitment to become better, to learn more, to grow, to evolve, to develop, and having a mindset that embraces change, that is open to flexibility. These are really, really important variables to success. There are a lot more we could talk about. I don't know how much time we have, but if you want to know, just caring for other people, not living life for yourself, understanding that the world doesn't revolve around you, and recognizing that we're all in this together. If there's one thing that this pandemic has taught us is we literally are all in this together. Well, leaders understand that, because to be a great leader, the first thing you recognize is leadership isn't about me, it's about you. It's about taking 1 + 1 and making it 3. It's about empowering those around you to allow them to become their best selves. So that's how you become successful, Paul.
Excellent.
By looking out for others.
Excellent. Look, that's great wisdom there. And as you said, we will move on to the next section. But before we do that, I would like to show you how to get 3 to 5 new clients a month on LinkedIn by spending 30 minutes, even if you don't know where to start or have limited marketing funds. And as Adam said, in a way that you actually inspire people and create relationships and connections, not those messages that Adam will block or delete. So just go to blgclick.com and watch a pre-recorded free masterclass for the sales machine. You'll learn the 3 steps, the secret formula to 10x your views, 7 killer elements to get 50 likes and 20 comments on every post, but most importantly, the people you want, and the scripts to get 80% response rate. So just go to blgclick.com, watch the free pre-recorded masterclass, and look, many of the activities that are happening on LinkedIn can be done by a virtual assistant. So if you don't have one and like to learn more, just go to buildlivegive.com/VA. So the next section is the live section, Adam. And what are some daily habits that help you to be hugely successful?
I think it's important to work out every day. I think it's important to eat right. I think it's important to get a good night's sleep. Those are pretty basic things, but if you don't follow those basic things, you don't feel well. You don't get the most out of your day. You're not productive. When I don't get a good night's sleep, my energy level is not the same the next day. My level of productivity is not the same the next day. When I don't work out, I don't have the same amount of energy. And in turn, I don't have the same level of productivity. You are what you eat. I think meditation is an important thing to bring into your life in some capacity, even if it's just meditating for a minute a day. Some people will meditate for much longer. So those are some basics. I mean, I can walk you through my daily routine if you want. We can take this question in whatever direction you want, but those are core principles for me that I think everyone should follow.
Yeah, look, and it's funny, when I did some work with Franklin Covey as a facilitator, they talked about the 5 energy drivers, and I think you summed them up well. It's eat, move, sleep, relax, and connect. And you certainly showed us how to connect early on. So we'll move to the next section, which is the give section. What charity or community are you passionate about, and why?
That's a great question. And there are a number of charities that I love. I always feel uncomfortable plugging one particular charity over another. But I think it's important Paul, for everyone to be as charitable as possible, however they can be, in whatever way they can be, whether it is by giving money, by giving time, by giving talent. I just think it's important to have a mindset around giving back.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. And, all the proceeds of my book called Build, Live, Give go, and a portion of my total revenue go to a cause that I'm passionate about. It's called the Purple House, and you can go to thepurplehouse.org.au to find out more. So the last section is the rapid fire section. So I'll ask you some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
So to try to keep it as rapid as possible, I gave you them. Get a good night's sleep, work out every day, and eat right. That's how you live an effective lifestyle. That's how you have the best energy every day.
Excellent. And what's a technology which is essential to running your business?
I don't know that I would call it a technology per se, but I couldn't live without the Google Suite. That's a set of tools that I'm in every day, many hours a day, between email and Google Docs and Google Calendar. So I'm a big fan of what they do. They make technology easy for people like me.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. If you're running a style of business like we are, which is, non-corporate entrepreneurship, Google's your best friend. So completely agree. What is your best source of finding new ideas? I know you spoke about, essential learning and podcasting, but is there any other way that you find new ideas?
Yeah, the best source of ideas are people. You bring in people. At the end of the day, if you want better ideas, surround yourself with smart people. No one person has a monopoly on ideas. I certainly don't. So within my business, whenever we want to try to get good ideas for our businesses, we try to bring in smart people and ask them.
And the last question is the big one, and I'll leave it to the end for that reason. But what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I love this question, Paul. And it's a complex question, yet such a simple question. And my goal really is just to try to make as much of a positive impact as I can in the lives of others to whatever extent I can. So anyone listening, if you listen to my podcast and that makes you a better leader, if that makes you more successful, great. If you come and hear me speak, I come into your company and give a talk and that helps you become a better leader, great. If you buy from my company and you buy one of our office chairs and you're able to live a more productive and healthier life because you're now sitting in a better chair that you can afford, great. I'm trying to add value to people's lives and to as many people's lives as I can.
And just, I know this is a little bit off script, but you're in the office chair business, as you said, and it's more in, making people work comfortably. What are you seeing or predicting as the changes as, we're hopefully on the other side of COVID at some point? What do you think the changes will be to where someone had their chair in office in a building versus maybe at home?
Yeah, I think that the trend around remote work is real. I think that people will continue to work from home even after there's a vaccine. I do think that there will be a return to the office. So I don't think that every single business is going to work from home forever, but I do think that the workforce will increasingly become remote. And the way that translates to companies like ours is we need to be prepared to cater to both the traditional office environment, to companies that have physical locations, as well as to individuals looking to furnish their home offices. And I can tell you my own setup, which is what I think is going to be how most people are going to operate going forward. I spend some time in my office. I spend some time in my home office. And I think that that's how a lot of companies are going to start thinking about things. So on a going forward basis, for businesses like mine, we play a really important part in making sure that when you are working from home, you're as productive as possible, you're as comfortable as possible, and regardless of where you're working from. Yeah, Paul, I didn't put this as one of my top 3 productivity tips: buy a Herman Miller chair or buy a steel case chair. But people are understanding more and more the importance of the physical setup around them. They don't need me to sell them on it. They're coming to us because they get it.
Yeah, look, and I know Deloitte is an example of now made sure that the setup at office is exactly the same as the setup at home, right? So, there's so many people, my wife's a classic example. She's still got a poor chair, and I keep saying to her, have a stand-up desk, have a chair, because we don't know how long you're going to be at home, but your home should be comfortable. It shouldn't be temporary. And I couldn't agree more. But I know we're very close to time. It's been brilliant. Listening to you, you've had huge success with the Veloz group, and I'll put all of the links to there's 3 separate companies. I'll put the links in the show notes, and also you can find out more from Adam, but most importantly, some of the amazing guests he has on the 30minutementors.com. And once again, that'll be in the show notes. So Adam, thanks for sharing your wisdom on the Build, Live, Give podcast today.
Paul, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to all of your listeners who took the time to tune in and to listen to our conversation. And thanks again. This was awesome.
Brilliant. Thanks. Bye. I really enjoyed that interview with Adam, and I know it was a little bit longer, and believe me, I could have actually asked him a lot more questions, a huge amount of wisdom. So you can get all the show notes at buildlivegive.com. So I'd love to know from you, what is your biggest takeaway from Adam? And please share on your socials mentioning Adam, and in particular on LinkedIn, given that he gave so many great tips on that platform. If you believe someone would benefit from the show, please share. You can learn the 3 steps to find and convert your ideal clients on LinkedIn in a free pre-recorded masterclass at blgclick.com. Please take action to build your business and lifestyle, and stay well.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.